And, as it relates to showing up in social media spaces or creating content to share with others, you want to remember that you might have a certain number of followers and not all of them need what you have right now. But if you can show up in an authentic and human and memorable way, then when the time comes that they need the thing that you do, they're either going to refer, they're going to come to you to try to work with you, or if they know someone else who needs what you're doing, they're going to refer business to you.
My name is Mike Fallat. I own the #1 book creation service for entrepreneurs known as Dream Starters Publishing, and I want to help you bring your story to life in a book so you can use that book to generate leads and attention for your business. Contact me today. Welcome to another episode of $1 Million Stories, where we get to interview authors from all over the world. I love talking to authors because they have the courage to take their thoughts, stories, and lessons, put it down in a book, and share it with the many, ultimately leading to a new legacy and destiny, and ultimately, I guess you could say, impacting the world around them. So if you're looking to write a book out there, check out dreamstarterspublishing.com. We can help you out with wherever you're at in the process. And if you have a book, you want to put it on autopilot to generate leads, check out bookmarketingcrm.com. Now, the book that we're talking about today is all about helping you reach more people. And I think it's perfect for you entrepreneurs out there who are looking to start or grow a business. And the book is called Reach, Create the Biggest Possible Audience for Your Message, Book, or Cause. And the author is with us, Becky Robinson. Thanks so much for being here, Becky.
I am so happy to be here with you today, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience.
Well, let's start off with the genesis of this book. What made you want to write it? And if you can give a quick little background on where you came from and maybe the pathway to where you're at now.
I would be happy to. So, Mike, I'm one of these people who knew from the time I was young that I wanted to write a book someday. I never knew what the book would be about. I started my company back in 2012, and at Weaving Influence, we support authors with their book marketing initiatives. So
Nice.
I'm in some similar spaces to the spaces that you're in. And what I found really early on is that by choosing this particular business path, what I had the opportunity to do is to walk alongside others who are living out that dream that I had carried for such a long time in my own life. Back in about 2014, I flew out to California with a client of mine, and he was experiencing what I had heard him talk about. The publisher that he published with and that eventually I published with had what back then, before the pandemic, they had what they called author days. And author day was the chance that the author had to come out to San Francisco at the time, where the publisher was headquartered. And the author would spend an entire day with everyone at the publisher who would eventually touch the book. So they started out the day talking to the editorial staff, talking to the design staff about covers and interior for the book. They would talk to the sales and marketing team about distribution and marketing approaches. They would have a chance in the middle of the day to present their book to everyone at the meeting so that people would be on board and engaged with their book. And I remember being in that situation with my client, like opening the door to the publishing suite and feeling like this is exactly what I want to be able to do someday. Like I'm actually walking in this dream that I've been holding. So back then, that was kind of, I'd been in business then about 2 years, and I knew I wanted to write a book. To be honest with you, Mike, I pitched a few ideas to my editor prior to getting a yes. And what I realize now is that it was really helpful for me to be in the business a while to be able to develop my thought leadership and approaches before I put them in a book. So like many other business owners, I wrote a book because I wanted to enhance the credibility of my company and our offerings. Another thing I wanted to be able to do, because I work with authors, is to have empathy for the process that the authors I'm serving experience. So I thought that by doing my own book, I would get to know, well, what does it feel like when you put together a book proposal? What does it feel like when you hear a no from an acquisitions editor? What does it feel like when you have a tight deadline, but you also have a day job to deal with? What is it like to try to fit the writing in between everything else, or the editing in between everything else? Or how vulnerable does it feel when you go to market a book and you want people to love your work and you're not sure what the results will be? So I really also wanted that kind of empathetic window into what my clients were experiencing. And, I also hoped that my book would grow the revenue of my organization by helping us increase our prices or developing new leads for my company. And And I'll tell you, Mike, all of that stuff happened. So on the one hand, I had like this childhood dream of I want to write a book. On the other hand, I had this kind of business outcome that I wanted to achieve. And it's been 2 years since my book came out. And I can tell you that, I've checked all those boxes that I wanted to check. Yes, I have more empathy. Yes, I fulfilled my childhood dream. Like one of my favorite things is walking into a Barnes and Noble store and finding my book on the shelf, like I did last weekend. I was shopping with my daughter. I said, hey, we got to go see if my book's here. And there it was, like there's nothing. I mean, there's plenty of better things than that, but it's a pretty big joy as far as joys go. And the business outcomes have been incredible. So I highly recommend to anyone who's listening that you check out Mike's service, that you figure out how you can write a book to fuel your business, because a book is a magical tool in establishing your credibility and increasing revenue.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And it does mean so much to me. Like whenever I opened up the mailbox one day and my book was there, I didn't even believe it. I remember ordering it from Amazon. I'm like, wait a second, are you telling me that Amazon's gonna ship me a book that I didn't see beforehand, right? So I didn't see the printed copy anywhere else, but Amazon's gonna print it and ship it. And I remember that day, and it never left me. And so when I talk to people, and like you said, their journey, what it feels like to either struggle or to have those big wins. So the hero's journey, if you will. Therefore, you can really relate to them, and the message that you share resonates. So that to me, having other people around you experience those same highs, extremely important to me. And I think that once I am able to communicate just how much it's going to change their identity, right? Once you have a book and once you're able to, use it to generate leads, you have a certain confidence, you have a certain clarity. Not only do you notice it, but other people notice it in you. And that to me, it's something that once you experience it, it's your like moral obligation to help others experience the same thing. And it seems like that's what you're latching on to. Am I right?
Yeah, for sure. I had the opportunity to partner with authors for a long time before my own book came out, but there's just something extra that I can add to the experience now that I do have my own book. As you were talking, I wanted to share one of my favorite tips for authors who have a book and want to incorporate it in their lead generation processes. So, Mike, what I do, we actually have automated sequences on our website, so that if someone comes to our website, fills out a form, wants to find out about our service, the very first thing they get is an email with a scheduling link to get on my calendar or another team member's calendar, and a link where we say, hey, we want to give you a copy of my book so that it will add value to your journey. And I'm signing and shipping out multiple books per week, because there's this amazing effect that happens when someone has a chance to read my work before I get on a sales call with them, where they already have a sense of who I am, what I value, how I work, what my expertise is. And it really increases, I think, the success rate in terms of, identifying quickly whether or not someone is a good client for me and my team.
Nice. Yeah, I'm with you. And once you have the ability to give before and ask, or there's that extra bonus of giving something that other people want to accomplish, or, if individuals look at you and they say, wow, this person has a best-selling book, that all of a sudden you're an expert, you're the go-to authority figure in that field. And it just sets you apart, right? And if 87% of people in the United States want to write a book someday, and you're one of the 3% that actually accomplish it, you just do something that other people want to do. And I think that's how you hold their attention. And so, if you can go into some of these other tips here, I know that in chapter 1, you're talking about evaluating your current approach to building traction for your message. And you have a story about Lady Gaga here. So, I guess this is where it all begins. Evaluate your current approach and maybe see and where the weaknesses are at, and maybe how you're looking at things in the good way or a bad way. So, what is chapter 1 all about?
Wow. Well, so now I'm embarrassed, Mike, because it's been a couple years since I read my book, and maybe I need to go back and revisit it. Um, one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that we can sometimes misplace our aspirations. So most of us, like Lady Gaga obviously had this aspiration to become famous. Her name is known across the United States and around the world. Most of us are not going to be famous. And So the title of my book is Reach, but the working title that I had, prior to my publisher, guiding me to a new title, the working title that I had was Famous to a Few. And the idea around Famous to a Few is that most of us are never going to, have our names on billboards or like be on the Today Show or, be famous with a capital F famous. But if we choose to invest our lives in making a difference for others, sharing what we know, adding value, we can become famous to a growing community of people who choose to follow us. So Mike, I'm guessing like you're pretty famous in your circles, right? You're famous to those people who watch your YouTube channel and watch your TikTok. And, if you're watching this show or listening to this show right now, it's probably because you like Mike. Um, and so
Or hate me. Like me or hate me. There's a lot of people who follow my social media that hate me, just so you know. But yeah, one of the two.
Okay. Well, at any rate, you have become famous to this community of people that you're growing as you're adding value to the world. And, I think if we can get clear about the value that we want to offer to others and we show up in a consistent way to share that value with others, then we can become famous to those people who know us. And, I'm famous to a very few people who subscribe to my newsletter and, watch my YouTube videos. So,
It's a great way of looking at it. You're right. So what you're saying is that too many people out there are trying to impact the entire world. And they say, well, that is my finish line. That's my ideal definition of success. And so, or the definition of fame. When technically, if you really reverse engineer and say, hey, you know what? How could I help enough people where I'm valuable to them? And there's a phrase that I live by: be valuable to valuable people, right?
mhm.
And the moment you do that, it's really wild how, what if it's 100 people or 300 or 500 or 1,000 people and you're extremely valuable to them? Maybe you impact their life and change their, future, right? So now all of a sudden, when you walk into a room, they're like, oh, you got to talk to Bill, you got to talk
Mike.
to Sarah. It doesn't matter because you helped that person evolve and transform, right? And I've always said effective writing, and I think I picked this up from some great speaker, but effective writing is not showing people your ideas, it's transforming other people's ideas. And so, like, if you could do that to a certain amount of people, you do establish some type of fame in their mind. Therefore, when you do meet them in person, whatever, they hold you in high regard. And isn't that the end all be all, is that you do impact other people's lives, plain and simple? That's it.
Yeah, I agree. And if you think about it, the people that you're going to have the biggest impact on are the ones who are closest to you. So, as I approach retirement in 15 or 20 years or whatever, I guess it's a long way off. Most people really do resonate with this idea of legacy, and we're going to create legacy with those people closest to us. So, my 10 employees are the ones who are going to, probably like have the most legacy with those people. And then from there, it can be an expanding group of people who choose to follow the content that you share and that you can make a difference for. And the beautiful thing about a book is that you can scale that influence even farther because people around the world can buy and be helped by your book. And you may never meet them or know their name or even know that they bought your book.
Mm.
So a book is a wonderful tool in that it can go places that we can't go ourselves.
Oh my God. It's making you tangible and scalable the way I look at it, right? You're taking your thoughts, your ideas, your lessons, everything, and then sharing it with the world, and they're able to consume it at their pace whenever they want. And I think that you can't really do that with anything, any other type of medium, I don't think. Too much. Well, podcasts and all that, but you still have to sit down and listen. A book is just it seems like it's so you can multi-purpose all that content, but it's the way to share everything that you offer your clients or to the world in the shortest way possible. And therefore, there's still value added to them, and they can read it at any time, they can listen to it at any time. And I just think that if somebody's out there and they have solutions, why are they not sharing it with the world? And having a book is still held in such high regard that it not only gets them to fall in love with you, get them to know, like, and trust you, but it's the give before and ask. Somebody can download a book for free or buy it for $5, $10, and then they can learn everything they need to know to do it themselves, or they hire you, the expert, to do it for them. So We both we could talk about the importance of writing a book all day, every day, because it seems like we see it in our clients constantly. But in your book, you talk about discovering your value. Now, I've talked to many people and they say, I want to write a book about my life. And I'll say, okay, well, in my opinion, it's got to be a part of a strategy that's going to lead to other revenue streams or solutions. So you can do one-on-one consulting or webinars or masterminds, courses, all that. Some people struggle with, well, I don't know how I can help many people. And I think that discovering your value, there is an introspection that takes place. There's a ground zero moment that that maybe happen in their life, that they start to do a little bit of a self-awareness check, and then they can discover their value that they can offer the world. I know that happened for me. So in your book, is there any tips or strategies that you would recommend for people to do that?
Well, sure. So I think that one thing I want to remind everyone is that it is a discovery driven process. And what I've noticed as an entrepreneur is quite often the idea that you start out with, you think you're going to build a business with X. Along the way, you may discover that actually your customers need Y. So for anyone who's out there and they're not really sure yet exactly what their niche might be or what their value might be, like it is absolutely perfectly natural and normal to take some time to discover that value. Sometimes we can discover that value by asking those who are around us what they see that we have to offer. So one way to start might be to go out to the customers you already have, if you have some, and say, "Hey, what do you think is the unique value that me and my team are offering, or that
Hmm.
me and my company are offering? Or what's the unique value that you need from me?" Or you can just try a lot of stuff. Honestly, I think it sometimes just takes a minute, and it is okay to be a beginner. Like, I think it's important for those who might be listening or watching to remember that everyone who's starting a business or considering a book is starting kind of from from the same place. Everyone is a beginner at some time. And so if you can think about, what experiences have I had that are unique that I can offer to others? What solutions have I discovered on my own journey? What am I passionate about? If you start to ask yourself those questions, it may become very clear what that value is that you have to offer to others. And the other thing to remember is that the value that you have to offer is not for everyone all at once. And, as it relates to showing up in social media spaces or creating content to share with others, you want to remember that you might have a certain number of followers and not all of them need what you have right now. But if you can show up in an authentic and human and memorable way, then when the time comes that they need the thing that you do, they're either going to they're going to come to you to try to work with you, or if they know someone else who needs what you're doing, they're going to refer business to you. So the more you can just continue to show up in online spaces and offer value, even if no one is taking you up on it at this exact moment, if you can grow a community around it, then you're going to ensure that at the right time, those people will come back to you.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of people who post on social media for a week or a month, but they don't see any traction, so they give up. When in reality, what you're doing is leaving breadcrumbs. So when people do find you, they look back and they say, wow, this person's been consistent for 5 years. Now I trust them. And it's almost like the tipping point. You don't know when that tipping point is. But consistency, it also refines your message. You probably become way more clear minded as you produce content. So consistency, also your personality. There's some things that I would love to ask you about, like when it comes to reach, like how much do you show your personality and how early? I know that I wanted to make myself look more professional and maybe more successful than I really was at the time. And then it hit me. I'm just going to show people who I really am because, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, your personality creates your personal reality. And when I did that, it was another fire starter for my business, that it really attracted the right people and it deterred the wrong people. So
Mm.
I would say consistency, but personality is a major piece to it. And then being very specific on who you want to work with, maybe that perfect target audience member, that avatar, and get it down to a science. And once you do that, it's probably going to make it easier for your team to work with them too, because chances are the team is working with you because they line up with your personality. But as long as everybody's on the same page, I think there's a lot of I guess you could say, synergy amongst everyone. So anything you could add to, whether it's consistency, maybe setting something up to do that, highlighting your personality so you attract the right people, and also focusing on the type of person you really want to work with deep down. So anything?
Sure. Well, I'll start by talking about consistency. So, consistency, in my opinion, is one of the things that's most critical if you want to grow a larger audience for your work. And, sometimes people think consistency means like, I have to do the exact same thing, every day forever. And I don't really believe that consistency means that because, I've been in online spaces since 2009. And in 2009, my primary channel was Twitter. In 2024, I'm no longer using Twitter at all. Uh,
Wow. Why not?
so
Why not? I think X is looking good. You not a big into
yeah,
X
not a
or the
fan,
changes?
not a fan.
Okay.
I have moved as far as that kind of text only connection over to Meta's new text platform Threads. I'm finding like Threads to be an amazing platform to connect
Gotcha.
with people in real time and have conversations. But at any rate, the point is like one thing that's true is that no one can be in all the places all the time. Mike, before we started recording, you were talking about TikTok. I don't use TikTok. For most of our clients, we advise whatever you're going to be doing in online spaces to focus your attention on those activities that are sustainable for you over time. So rather than, needing to spread yourself thin and be on all the channels and, maybe not do that in a way that's authentic to your personality, to your point about identifying your niche audience, once you've identified the types of clients that you want to serve, you might know which channels those clients are using, and you can focus your energy and attention on those channels. So for me, my primary channels are LinkedIn and Instagram. Now I'm using Threads like more for fun because it reminds me of the old days of X. Um, and then also like we have a YouTube channel to catalog our videos, and I have a podcast that we do on a regular basis. Oh yeah, and I have a weekly newsletter. Like, so it's not that I'm not doing a lot of things, but we are trying to focus as it relates to social channels with our clients on just a few channels that they can actually show up on consistently over time.
Yeah, it's a great point
So on
there.
the topic of personality, like I wholeheartedly agree with you that we will create more reach for our work when we show up in authentic ways because people can tell. And what I notice, and I don't know if you've noticed this, Mike, but the more personal my Friday newsletter is, the more responses and engagement I get.
Yeah.
Like, people are reading your newsletter if you have a newsletter because they want to hear from you. So, this is something that makes me cranky. Like, never, never, I will never let AI write my newsletter because AI is not me. Um, you know, I'm the only one who can tell my stories. Those are things that I create from scratch.
I'm with you. Yeah, your personality needs to be on full display because, like you said, people connect with you for a reason, and you don't want just customers. You want raving fans, and I don't think you get that unless you show people who you really are.
Definitely so.
Very nice. And so, when it comes to what you talked about, social media, it took me a long time to realize that when it comes to different platforms, you have to do different things on each one of those platforms based off of how people interact with those platforms. Like you said, like the way I communicate on LinkedIn is a little bit different than the way I communicate on X or the way I communicate on Instagram. And it's because the people who go there consume it differently. And in the beginning, maybe you're doing everything the exact same way, but it doesn't land. And it was only once I realized the power of LinkedIn and how to utilize it is when I started to fall in love with it. And then also when it comes to X, I wasn't a big fan with it of it. Even I wasn't even getting a lot of traction, still not. But I was on a mastermind call recently and they show how much they've updated their advertisements on there and how specific you can get. So it's like, oh, wait a second. The more I understand about them, these different platforms, I can see the power in them and I'll start to utilize them. So you're right that you will change and transform over time. It's just the fact of loving the aspect of sharing your message. And maybe that's part of this consistency. If you don't like talking about it, if you don't like sharing your message, you're not going to do it. So don't look at social media as a job. Look at it as, man, if one person reads this in this week and it impacts them, I've done my job. That's a win.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you know what I like to think about, Mike, is that For those people who would like want to stay away from social media entirely or not see the value of social media for their business, if that's the case, like you are limiting the ultimate impact and reach of your work. So in my book, I define reach as expanding audience plus lasting impact. So if we want to be able to attract an expanding audience, we have to be out there where we have these opportunities to build our connections. And social media does give us that unique opportunity to build connections beyond the people who already know us.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I'm with you on that. You have to keep showing up with value consistently over time, and that's what will help you grow the reach of your work.
One thing that I've heard over and over from many people, depending on, it doesn't even matter if they're multimillionaires or not, but imposter syndrome, many people battle with that. Do you have any type of remedy or solution in your book? And the reason why I ask that is because it's so common. Whenever I mention it during a speech, people are like, yep, I'm battling with that. And my only solution is, well, you have to leave no doubt. We're all going to face it. It only means you're going from one world to another, which is actually a sign of growth, and you're always going to feel it no matter how big you get. And what happens is that if you start to look at it as sort of a dragon that you need to slay, the way you slay that dragon on your hero's journey is that you leave no doubt. I need to write more books, get on more stages, do more business, right? Leave no doubt in my mind and in their eyes, also in their mind, that it's going to be a win. And so every time I feel that, I lean into it, and I want to become more of the expert. I got to learn more so I can beat that imposter syndrome. Anything that you share in your book that helps people with this?
I'm not sure there's anything in the book that helps with that, but I will quite often offer this reframe because I think closely aligned to this idea of imposter syndrome is people who will say, like, I'm not comfortable with self-promotion. And I think those two things are fueled by some of the same kind of emotions or thoughts. My favorite reframe as it relates to those people who are going to say, well, I'm not comfortable with self-promotion is to remind people that when you're promoting a book, it's not self-promotion, it's message promotion and value
Mm.
promotion. So if you can kind of separate yourself from it, then you can get a vision for the way that your ideas and your perspectives can make a difference for people. And that can sometimes help you overcome that imposter syndrome. Because if you're really focused on the other person and what they're going to receive, or the way you can serve someone else or add value to them, then you're not thinking about yourself at all. And if you're not thinking about yourself at all, then you're not, having those imposter syndrome thoughts swirling around your mind. So I think the best approach is really to focus on others and, what do I have to give? What do I have to share? What's the value that I can add to this situation? What do I have to offer here?
Yeah, it's another thing I learned from some of my mentors, that if you're nervous on stage is because you're thinking too much about yourself, of not screwing up. Think about how you can help others, and all of a sudden you start to lose those nervous antics and start to think about, like, as long as I'm out there and I'm connecting with them, you start thinking of others rather than yourself. And it's wild how things go a lot smoother. So that's the same way with your social media posting, or whenever you're on a podcast. Forget about yourself and just start thinking of them and watch what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
So you have a company called Weaving Influence. And so I think you said you are about to be in your 13th year. Can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of this and what you offer?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, Mike, back in about 2009, I was trying to figure out what I would do for a career. I had been a stay-at-home mom of three kids. And I began to like show up in some social media spaces, do some blogging and social media marketing. And I had the opportunity on one of my first projects to help a client launch a book. And it was so fun. And, it seemed to bring together this love that I had of writing and books and, this new interest in social media marketing. So I started to form my company back then, like in the early 2010s. Officially, when I left working for other people and went all in with my own business, was June 1st, 2012. So a lot of it, we talked earlier about what if you don't know what the value is that you have to offer. It was a bit of a discovery driven process where, I did a project and I saw that I got good feedback and people started to ask me, hey, could you help me with this? So Weaving Influence is a digital marketing agency. We also offer public relations service. So working with authors to place articles and interviews to get our clients on podcasts and such. So anything that you can think of related to digital marketing, we're an agency that provides it. We build websites, we work on email marketing, social media marketing, we work on content marketing, we do PR, we work on virtual events for our clients, we work on podcast production and promotion for our clients. We also have a book production arm, which might be similar to what you do, Mike, in that we help people who are self-publishing authors from the point of their editing when they're ready for an edit all the way through to distribution on Amazon and through Ingram Spark, and then the marketing beyond that. We primarily work with business book authors, people who are writing books for the workplace or writing books to fuel their businesses. We have done like some self-help memoir, some faith-based books, but primarily we've worked on business books. We've launched about 220 books with our clients in the last 12 plus years. And I would say like one of the unique aspects of our business is that we have developed a team of book reviewers who support Amazon review campaigns where we distribute our clients' books and get, high numbers of Amazon reviews in a short period of time. We have a client who just launched a book last week, and I came into work Monday, and my team member pinged me and said he already had 120 Amazon reviews in 1 week, 120 in 1 week. So that's a unique differentiator of the type of work that we do. And it's been really fun. I work with amazing women from across the country. We have employees in various states, and so we're remote and distributed, but we also have an office in Michigan where I live. It's been a fun ride. I never set out, like I didn't have a business plan. I never took any business classes. So I had to learn things a lot the hard way. But it's been great.
Well, I'm looking at it. It seems like you work with a lot of personal development, business related books.
Mhm.
And when it comes to what you're saying, like very similar, I guess you would say, book production. You said from editing forward, we basically do the ghostwriting on all that, which is very, very time consuming on average. But once you go through the writing and even the editing stage, any author, they become more clear minded. So can you just share what you've seen, the transformation in people? I'm telling you, I see people go from like this timid person, a little bit shy, to, hey, get me on that podcast. All right, you know what? I want to go back to the prisons where I come from, and I'm going to help people understand the mindset of getting out of prison and building a $1 million business. Like, I see them transform into this animal, right? So what have you seen?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, like, I guess I could start with me. Like, I thought I was confident in my business before my book came out, but I experienced that transformation that you're describing. That once I had the book, I suddenly had this new set of clear language about through which to describe the work that I do. I think that for our clients, quite often the people who come to us, might be traditionally publishing, Mike. So I think it's a different mindset. I think people who go through the process of writing a book proposal or having an agent and getting a traditional publishing deal, they have all that confidence before they get to me. I don't know that they experience that same transformative effect that you're talking about. Um, but what I have seen is that, all of the authors I serve are kind of blown away by the outpouring of support and encouragement they get from their networks when they bring a book into the world. And I think one of the most important book marketing exercises or tactics or whatever you might want to call it is involving an author in going out to their existing communities to ask for help and support to share their book with others. And the thing that I see so often in my clients' journeys is just their like deep, I don't know, gratitude for the surprising ways that people want to help when you have a book.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like not exactly answering your question, but it is the thing that I have seen more than anything else. I love to help authors celebrate their book launches by having virtual launch parties. So on a virtual launch party, it's on a Zoom meeting typically, and there would be 50, 75, 100 people who know the author intimately who come. And it's always different because of the author's unique personalities and networks, but it's always this just like powerful moment for the author to realize how deeply they're loved in the world, how deeply they're valued in the world. And it's this amazing kind of celebration of all the hard work that has gone into their book, but also all the hard work that's gone into their lives that's caused them to be able to write their book.
Wow. Virtual book launch parties. We have never implemented one of those, but my God, I could see the power in that because now you have enough people talking about it, supporting the individual, the dopamine hitting the author, right? Showing that, wow, people actually care. But then you have an automatic tribe that's buying the book, leaving reviews, and just putting it on the right track right out of the gate. That is awesome.
I might have given you your next business offering
Yeah.
idea there, Mike.
I
You can send my cut on that over to my email.
Yeah. $10,000 next virtual book launch party. Man, that's a great idea. That is a good idea that I'll probably implement sometime when I have the resources ready to go for a team to put that together. And my God, is that great. But so in addition to that, one last question I have for you is, do you do virtual events? So when you talk about putting the book out there outside of virtual book launches and getting them on the right track, do you help them put together virtual events? Because that's what we're moving towards. And I was wondering if you
Mhm.
have any tips on that or what you've seen.
Sure. I think since about 2012, I've been doing webinars as a part of book launch campaigns. The idea around the webinars for those authors who might be putting their book up for pre-order or people who are traditionally published who need to drive pre-orders so that the retailers will stock their book. We will usually recommend either like a webinar or a webinar series where you go out with your book content to bring people together, and then the call to action is for a pre-order. If you do it once the book comes out, it can be for a book order. But it's a great chance for authors to get a bit more confident talking about the concepts in their book, especially if they hope to speak later. It's a great way to provide some value to online participants. So if people are interested in that webinar series, like I said, I've been interviewing authors on a webinar series for more than 10, 12 years. And on our YouTube channel for Weaving Influence, I have about 190 events that I've hosted and facilitated with authors.
Nice.
So you can find all of those on the Weaving Influence YouTube channel. And yes to virtual events, planning, marketing, hosting, facilitating both the webinar type events, which are content focused, and then the virtual launch celebrations, which are celebration focused to bring the authors network together.
And we live in such a great time period to be an entrepreneur, to have a book, to want to really reap the rewards of reaching a lot of people and making an impact. I think we've got virtual assistants, we have AI, we have podcasts that are really growing. I mean, long form content such as podcasts, we got videos, courses, software that makes it easy to implement all of this, easy to build websites. This is the best time, isn't it, to be an entrepreneur? I've always said that.
It's pretty fun. Yeah.
So, man.
I love what I get to do every day for sure.
Is there a book that stands out in your life that maybe was a defining moment? I always talk about Rich Dad Poor Dad on this podcast that really set me on the path of becoming an entrepreneur, understanding assets, liabilities. It really did create a whole new version of who I was at that time. So, is there a book like that in your life that put you on this path?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are so many books, like, when you think about, serving 400 authors over 12 years, it would be hard to like pick one and single it out. So I'm going to pick the first one. So the first client I ever had a chance to support with book marketing strategy was a woman named Whitney Johnson. And her first book was called Dare, Dream, Do. I wouldn't say like the book itself was necessarily instrumental for me, but Whitney, the person, was such a huge influence on my life. Like the book is great, but just knowing and watching Whitney. So in those early days when I was trying to decide, like, did I have the courage to leave W-2 employment to take a leap and build a company and hire employees and all of those things that we do as entrepreneurs that feel really risky and really scary. Whitney was someone who was like, she was my client, but she was also like a mentor and a guide who helped me believe in myself in a way that I hadn't believed in myself before.
Nice.
So she has written a number of books since her first book, and they're all tremendously good. Her most recent book is called Smart Growth. Um, but I would like, because I've served so many clients and have so many books on my shelves, I don't want to single out one, but Whitney as that first client was really instrumental for me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. That's why when people ask me for a book that changed my life, or I mean, obviously it was Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it's tough for me to even put together a top 100 because the last thing I want to do is leave out some of my clients' books. And so every book that I really, really, really lean on as a must read is usually not a client book. Therefore, I don't ever single anybody
Mm.
out. And so when I think of books that mean a lot to me, guys, I mean, I'm Rich Dad Poor Dad, Outwitting the
Oh, I
Devil,
see that
Think
right
and Grow
there.
Rich. Yeah, that. So these are the without these I wouldn't be here. So I kind of pay homage to them. And
Ah,
yeah,
nice.
so and I guess you're always doing every different version, right? You're doing Kindle, paperback, hardcover, audiobook also. I'm starting to see an amazing
Um,
trend towards audiobook.
Yeah. So, wherever possible, I definitely advise that clients do an audiobook. I do have my book on all three formats, paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. I think you said hardcover also. As it relates to the kind of Amazon bestseller strategy, I'm not a fan of releasing a hardcover and a paperback at the same time because
Correct. I'm
then
with you.
when you're going out to your network, it diffuses the sales. It's harder to get enough sales on one to get that bestseller banner. So typically I'll advise clients, start with one or the other, print and ebook. Sometimes releasing the audiobook later gives you another reason to stay out in front of your
Damn right.
network. So when my book came out, I did have all three, paperback, Kindle, and audio come out at the same time. For those people who want to speak or want to be on podcasts, I think doing the audiobook, reading it, narrating it yourself is a really amazing opportunity if you have the chance to do it. I did narrate my own audiobook, and it was super fun to read my own book and, have it in my own voice. And I've gotten good feedback about people from people who have listened to it.
And you know the game because I say the same thing. You don't do a hardcover right away, it will dilute it, but also hardcover's a little bit more of formatting involved. So Kindle and the paperback, launch it, then you do the audiobook and then the hardcover later down the road. So yeah, you know the game. I like it.
Yeah, I do know the game.
That's great. The website is called Weaving Influence. If you want to get in touch with her or her team, guys, check out Weaving Influence. And she does things, I guess, in a little bit different manner than what we do. And so if you're, aligning with what she's sharing with, just check her out. Really well done website. And outside of the website, I think you said you're easy to find on LinkedIn and maybe another social media platform. I think you said
Instagram. So
Threads.
you'll find our company on LinkedIn and Instagram. You'll find me, Becky Robinson, on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can also find me at my personal brand website, beckyrobinson.com. Mike, it's funny. I don't know if you've ever heard of a comedian named Becky Robinson, but quite often what will happen is people come to my website looking for the comedian Becky Robinson. And then I have to like go to them and say, hey, like I didn't do a show in Vegas. I like I can't be at your event. It happens more than you would think. I am not that Becky Robinson, but you can find me at beckyrobinson.com because I'm the one who bought that URL.
The best-selling author, not the comedian. Just make
Yes,
sure that's
exactly.
in the bio.
Exactly, exactly.
Beautiful. Well, I have to say, this has been an honor to talk with you. I love talking to other people in this field. Obviously, we've been around some of the same players, but we all have a different spin on how we do things. And, it's always nice to learn from somebody else in a different sphere. So, Becky, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Mike. It was great to meet you and best wishes for huge success for you moving forward.
Yeah, same to you. And regardless, we're both helping people get their books done so they can obviously make an impact around them and reach more people. So I'm with you. So, guys, the book is Reach, Create the Biggest Possible Audience for Your Message, Book, or Cause. 151 reviews on Amazon. It's resonating, 4.8 stars. Read this book, and maybe you'll be able to get that clarity. Also, discover your value and become famous within your circles. Remember, guys, $1 million book will lead to $1 million life. Right on.